find out, don't you? So on the card today, very good, Daryl. We've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism, and I think by now everybody knows what systemic racism is all about, right? Actually, I can't do this very well, can I? Yeah. So that orange-colored rice is red, according to the narrative, and don't anyone say anything else. I've got Clint versus GPA, which is a long, ongoing story, Clint versus GPA. I've got Michael San Nicolas versus Governor, and that's about the, keeps popping up on the card all the time. And then GWA versus Stella. Stella is the sympathetic or the empathetic 85-year-old lady who has a $36,000 water bill. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Starting out with where's Johnny Utah? Not here, huh? Is Facebook back?
Yes, it is.
All right. Let me take a minute here to get Facebook set up.
Did you want to take a break? Because I do have a break coming
Yeah,
up.
this is a good time to take a break. Good.
Okay,
Good idea, Daryl.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The Eat Fresh Refresh goes on at Subway. You've tried the Cali Fresh steak. Now you can enjoy the Cali Fresh turkey. One of only 2 Cali Fresh subs. The Cali Fresh turkey is packed with deli-thin, oven-roasted turkey piled high on a bed of hickory smoked bacon, smashed avocado, and fresh mozzarella. Crafted for premium freshness, the Cali Fresh turkey is made on freshly baked, hearty, multi-grain bread with your choice of fresh veggies hand-sliced daily in restaurants. Treat yourself to a Cali Fresh turkey today. Subway. Eat fresh.
Welcome to Tall Tales.
Not that one. Let's go to this one.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so here we are. Back on Tall Tales, back on Facebook, and unfortunately, because we lost Facebook there for a while, I lost all of the posts that you put up. So if you put something up that you thought was really clever and you don't see it now, go ahead and post it again. I really appreciate the post because they add a real important dimension to the show. Okay, let's start out with GPA versus Clint. And Clint has had the war paint on for GPA ever since he's been a senator. Clint wants to convert to solar energy yesterday. He doesn't want to burn any fossil fuels at all. He doesn't want to see any rate increases, and he doesn't want any lip whatsoever out of anybody on the CCU, the Power Authority, or the Water Authority. So here's a story that ran in the Post. Without an exemption from the law that requires fossil fuel facilities to be a certain distance away from schools, the lenders for Guam Ukadu Power LLC would not be comfortable lending money to build a 41-megawatt reserve unit in Pidi, which is part of agreements to facilitate a shorter permitting process for the 198-megawatt power plant at Ukadu. Not only would the reserve unit be at risk, but funding for the entire $500 million power plant project would fall into jeopardy without that exemption, according to Power Authority General Manager John Benavente, who spoke to media at a roundtable meeting Tuesday ahead of Thursday's public hearing for Bill 213. The measure intended to grant the exemption needed in the law. The measure intended to grant the exemption needed in law. A refinancing measure also is up for hearing Thursday. The 198 megawatt Ukadu plant is intended to become the next main power source on Guam for the near future, although reliance on the plant would diminish as more renewable energy facilities come online. The project was awarded late in 2019 to the consortium of Korea Electric Power Corp and Korea East-West Power. Guam Ukadu Power LLC is a local company created for the project. The original plan was to build 65 megawatts of standby generation at Ukadu, along with a 198 megawatt combined cycle unit. Guam Ukadu Power was pursuing the major source permitting for this, but that would require more time for the plant to come online. Minor source permitting is a shorter process, but would limit plant operations significantly during steam turbine outages and overhauls that occur every 4 years, and did not seem economically feasible for GUP. Minor source permitting was not part of the solicitation for the new power plant because GPA presumed the bidder would pursue that path based on the construction timelines. So instead of 65 megawatts at Ukadu, the plan was changed to build 41 megawatts of reserve power at Cabras in Pidi, chosen because of the existing infrastructure at the location. The change will come with additional costs, but GPA states that there are advantages to offset those costs, including eliminating fuel trucking costs and the potential retirement of older, costlier machines with the 41 megawatts available to the utility. As a reserve unit, the 41 megawatts won't be operating all the time, but building it at Cabras would place the new facility within 1,200 feet of Jose Rios Middle School in Pidi. Local law bars the construction of fossil fuel generation facilities in excess of 1 megawatt, in excess of 1 megawatt within 1,500 feet of a school. GPA states that the Cabras site was transferred to the utility and is unzoned federal property turned over for power plant use by GPA. But GUP is concerned with conflicts between law and special use designation. GUP lenders are expected to lend about $50 to $60 million for the 41 megawatt reserve unit and aren't comfortable loaning money until perceived legal issues are corrected by the legislature, according to GPA legal counsel Graham Botha. An alternative plan would depend on the lenders, Benavente said. If they say no deal, then I think we've got everybody in the room and start planning B, C, D, and F, he said. It's all part of the $500 million. They all could be in jeopardy at this point. Of course, the 41 megawatt will be in jeopardy, but again, the lenders are wanting certain things, dotted I's and all the T's. The Ukadu power plant was supposed to be up and running by October of 2022, but with everything that has transpired, the new date for the new power plant to begin operating is April of 2024. The 198 megawatt Ukadu plant is a key project for several reasons. It is a major product under the consent decree with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. GPA had been non-compliant with emissions regulations for years and entered into a consent decree to avoid hundreds of millions of dollars in fines. GPA and GUP attempted to negotiate a minor source process for the Ukadu plant in early 2020, but talks failed due to estimated cost overruns, leading the company to pursue major source permitting, which in turn drew concerns from U.S. EPA because of the extended timeline. U.S. EPA encouraged GPA and GUP to work out an agreement, and the entities in August 2020 began discussing a way to use minor source permitting, ultimately leading to the agreement to build a 41 megawatt of reserve generation at Pidi. The Ukadu plant is also intended to meet the island's power needs with a military buildup while being included in GPA's plans to incorporate more renewable energy and reduce fuel costs. There are community concerns with placing the 41 megawatt plant at Cabras, but Guam's existing major power plants already operate at the site. With the Ukadu power plant online, along with 25% renewable energy capacity, GPA is projecting that its sulfur dioxide emissions will fall from 13,000 tons per year, mostly released in Petey, to just 7 tons per year by 2025. So this is a little bit hard to sort out, but let me see if I can lay it all out here. GPA has gone really headfirst into solar energy, and they've built, they're contracting with companies to build solar energy farms, which GPA will buy from these companies, like the one that made such a mess up at Marble Cave. But folks from GPA will tell you that you can't rely on solar power because obviously the sun isn't shining all the time. So you have to have a pretty hefty source of power that can come on just like that when the sun goes behind the cloud. And that's what they're building at Ukadu, the 198 megawatt plant that's set up in such a manner that when the sun doesn't shine, it comes on in less than a heartbeat. It was all set to go, but then it was determined that another auxiliary power plant was needed, and that's the one that GPA wants to build in Petey. And we have a statute on the books now that says you can't build a power plant within 1,500 feet of a school. Now, that's been on the books for probably 20 years, and no one can tell us how the number 1,500 feet came up. Just a nice Kentucky windage measurement, I suspect. And the current Cabras power plants are within that 1,500 feet. So to build a more energy efficient plant within that 1,500 feet that saves this Ukadu plant and the financing would seem to be pretty easy until you take into consideration the eco-fascists who oftentimes draw an immovable line in the sand. We're not going to do anything to put those kids in school at risk. Even if you have people from the Power Authority saying, hey, we're actually going to lessen the risk there. You have that, and then the seemingly innate hostility for the Power Authority that Clint seems to demonstrate every time any Power Authority issue comes up. He has been heard to say the only reason that power rates go up is because of the CCU and GPA, and he wanted to abolish the CCU at one time. I got to tell you, having watched this whole book unfold, we are so much better off now that we have the CCU than we were before when the governor appointed the members of the Power Authority and Water Authority Board, and in effect basically ran the utilities. We had the Load Shedding Blues was the #1 song on Guam for years in a row. Simon will tell you about EPA getting after us for piping Hanum Taki through the pipes, and we just had all kinds of problems. Now power authorities are rare and short. And as far as I know, we don't have any problems with the cleanliness of our water. I drink tap water at home. When I go out to eat or someplace like that and someone brings me a bottle of water, I'll send it back. I don't need bottled water. I'll just drink my water right out of the tap. I don't see anything wrong with it whatsoever. And I want to say that I really take my hat off to GPA and GWA because they've done a really tremendous job at getting those utilities up to where they are now, and they've got great plans for the future. I went to a chamber meeting where John Beneventi spent about 25 minutes outlining the plans that they have that go for the next 50 years. So we're really well served by these outfits. And if they want to build a plant in Petey, I'm going to say, fine, I'm blessing it. Go for it.
It seems to me that those that should have already been basically grandfathered in. It couldn't apply to Petey, or they would have had to shut the plant down or move the school when they passed the law.
Grandfathered?
Grandfathered.
Yeah, you know, and that term comes from a Jim Crow era rule that said that you didn't have to take a literacy test if your grandfather voted. Not very many black Americans' grandfathers voted before the Civil War.
That's right, but Guam was Spanish at the time, so I guess it didn't apply. The current use of grandfathering is what happens when something is affected by a law that's passed.
Except on Tall Tales. It's kind of like using they for one person on Tall Tales.
Okay, well, but you get the idea.
I do. I understand. I think perhaps an incumbents clause would serve just as well. But at the time that the statute was put in place, it was known that the existing plant was within 1,200 feet of the school. So the statute was prospective, basically saying, well, we got one now, but we don't want any more. And I think it's just really short-sighted just not to do it, given everything that's been put on the table here, the fact that we'll actually be going closer to achieving the purpose of the statute than if the exemption isn't granted, because if the exemption isn't granted, then the older plant that puts out more sulfur is going to continue to run. Okay, let's go on to the next item on the card. That's Michael San Nicolas versus the governor. And this gets us into pre-condemnation owners of land, the Ancestral Lands Commission, etc. I'm going to go into it at quite some length. And if you are someone that thinks that the folks who owned real property in the area of what's now called Eagles Field, and that property was condemned by the United States, you think that land should be given to those pre-condemnation owners, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed in what I say, because that just isn't the law as I understand it. So here's the story. Delegate raises questions about peculiar approach to leased land for new hospital. Guam's lone delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives is seeking answers from Governor Leon Guerrero on her administration, on how her administration intends to use land being eyed for a new hospital and healthcare complex. This letter to the governor is the beginning of our inquiries locally and federally on the peculiar approach being taken to lease lands that appear to qualify for outright return. Now, I'm going to mark that sentence, I hope, if I can find my pen, and come back to it, because we're going to take a short break here. Short break.
5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So I'm going to read that sentence again. This letter to the governor is the beginning of our inquiries locally and federally on the peculiar approach being undertaken to lease lands that appear to qualify for outright return. Now, what Michael is referring to there is this program, a local law, 23rd Guam legislature, that says that when excess federal property is deeded to the government of Guam is to deed it to the Guam Ancestor Lands Commission, which is to find out who owned the real property before it was condemned and then convey the property back to those people. Everybody says, give it back to the original landowners, everybody but me. It's kind of like grandfather clauses and talking about them. Because we're not talking about original landowners, we're talking about pre-condemnation landowners, and that could be a significant difference. So that's what it's about, and the statute, that's what the statute says, and Lilian Guerrero has said that she's working on a 100-year lease for the what we'll refer to as the Eagles Field property upon which to build the new health center. I'm going on with the article. San Nicolas questioned why the parcel of land identified for the projects looks like it will be leased from the Navy rather than asking the military for an outright transfer of ownership of the property to the government of Guam and ultimately to ancestral landowners. The administration is in negotiations for a long-term agreement for the property with the military for the area near Eagles Field in Magilo, which the delegate says is an indication it would be, quote, ripe for designation as excess land on Navy's inventory, which should be returned to Guam. In fact, in the attached letter from the Secretary of Navy dated January 15, it appears to indicate a willingness to return parcels for the purposes of constructing a medical complex, although it's unclear to my office whether these references align with those you intend to lease. Please clarify. So draw a string around your finger here, because San Nicolas says, attached a letter to his letter to the governor, and he says the letter appears to indicate willingness to return parcels for the purposes of constructing a medical complex. So let's say that you are Mr. Navy, and you have some land that you're not currently using, that you own, and you are attempting to expand your military base here on island significantly, the new Camp Bloss. And you see it in your interest to have a modern, up-to-date, functioning hospital here on the island, because although the military has its own hospital, there'll be a lot of civilian workers and a lot of other people who will need access to a hospital. So you're sitting there and you think, I've got two choices here. I could give Eagles Field to the governor of Guam. I could quit claim it. I could quit claim fee simple to her. Then she would have to quit claim it to the Ancestral Lands Commission. The Ancestral Lands Commission would then have to quit claim it to 18 descendants of 18 pre-condemnation owners. I'd like to see this hospital built during my own lifetime, Mr. Navy is saying. Not 20 years down the pike while all of this stuff is sorted out. And then he's also saying, it's none of my business, but if that land goes to the 18 pre-condemnation owners and the government has to buy it from them, the government's going to have to pay through the nose for that land, even in a condemnation proceeding. The government's going to have to pay through the nose. The more money the government pays for the land, the less money there is to build the hospital. So Mr. Navy's saying, what else could I do? Well, I could lease the property to the government of Guam, And the terms of my well-worded lease would say you could use this property for 100 years, provided that you use it only for the construction of a hospital and related facilities. And don't come to me with any of this give the land back to the original owner stuff, because if you do, the lease is canceled. This is kind of some of the reality here of what's going on with this, I think. So back to the article. The delegate is looking for answers to several direct questions he penned to the governor. 1, has your office petitioned the Secretary of the Navy for parcels of interest for the new hospital to be returned? Well, go back to what I just said. The governor's thinking, I got to build a hospital. I've got a fair chunk of money here because all the money the feds gave us. But if that land, if I give the land, or if the land is deeded to the government of Guam, to the Ancestral Lands Commission, and into the owners, that's just a lot of money that we're spending on something other than the hospital. Second question, why are you pursuing a lease of these lands when federal statutes provide a mechanism for the outright return of these lands? Well, first of all, I think Michael is assuming a fact, not an evidence here. If the governor is pursuing anything, if Mr. Navy comes along and says, hey, Governor, I would give you a lease. In fact, this goes back to when we had the big stick in port, the Theodore Roosevelt. You remember that, Daryl? And the Navy was so grateful to the governor for harboring that ship. He said, you know, we're going to do something really nice for you. And the governor said, give us Eagle Field. Remember that? But so the Navy says, so Mr. Navy comes along and says, I'll tell you what, Governor, I'll give you a 100-year lease for that property. And the governor says, okay, but open your mouth because I want to look at your teeth, Mr. Gift Horse.
Not the way to go about things.
Not really. Not the way to go about things. And when someone offers you something, you know, Christmas time, Bob, you know, I know you noticed I know that you really wanted a couple of new pairs of skivvy drawers, so here they are. I don't like the colors. No, you just don't do that. Even when you're talking about real property. Is the intent of a lease meant to circumvent local law that would require just compensation to original landowners for the use of said property? Well, I'm going to be really sarcastic here, and this is what I'm going to say. I hope so, because I want to see a government that operates effectively and efficiently, operating within the rule of law, providing basic government services on at least a break-even basis. I think we've gotten to the idea that the purpose of our government is to give away as much money as we possibly can. And that's one of the reasons that our hospital is such a mess, and that our roads are such a mess, and so many other things around here don't meet our high levels of satisfaction, because instead of spending the money wisely, we're intent on giving the money away. Back to the letter. Emmanuel T. Cruz has publicly pleaded for the governor to facilitate the return of land to ancestral owners, which includes his and other families. He has also asked Leon Guerrero not to circumvent the process of the Ancestral Lands Commission, which was created to return lands taken from previous owners or compensate them for return lands the government intends on using. San Nicolas argued that it is not in the best interest of Guam's people to undertake a multi-hundred-million-dollar hospital investment in a leasehold that could be similarly made with full ownership. The logic of that one just escapes me.
Well, not if he wants to follow the current law.
Well, if you want to follow the current law. But if you're looking at it strictly from a dollar and cents basis, you can have a 100-year lease for nothing, or you can have fee simple title to the property for probably 30 or 40 million. Which is a better deal?
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
You've got this figured out. He hasn't. He hasn't figured this part out.
Well,
Except the politics of it.
he has. He's got that part figured out. So he wants to engage in some demagoguery here, and the governor's certainly vulnerable here because it's going to be very much like the item on the card called, let's see, GWA versus Sarah versus, what's her name?
Stella.
Stella, yeah. You know, I mean, when you hear that story, your sympathy goes to Stella, right? It's $36,000, but you really feel bad about Stella, and you're thinking, God, it's just not good. And when you come up with this, give the land back to the original owners thing, most of public sentiment is, yeah, you know, give it back to them because the land was stolen from them. Of course, it wasn't, but it's all part of the same rhetoric. And San Nicolas apparently is trying to capitalize on that feeling that, you know, most of the people will identify with the 18 families that would reap a gigantic windfall if the governor took fee title to that property instead of a leasehold. So that's, as I see it, the boundaries of the dispute. Now, I saved the best part of this column for last, and here it is. Crystal Paco San Augustine, the governor's communications director, provided a brief reaction to the letter, but told the Post that Adelup will formally respond in writing to San Nicolas. Quote, Eagles Field is not excess land. That's the end of the story. Because if you go to the statute, the whole statute only deals with excess land. The military's declaration that the land is excess is the condition precedent to the returning of any land to anybody. If it's not excess, the statute doesn't apply. Now, maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not what you want the statute to say. Unfortunately, that's what it says. Okay, we'll come back to this right after the big halftime show and wrap it up and go on to GWA versus Stella.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
More debate ahead. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The Senate will resume debate on voting rights legislation Wednesday, even though Democrats know they have no chance of passing it without doing away with the filibuster rule.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer knows he lacks the votes to change the filibuster for voting rights, but he plans to force a vote on the filibuster, even if it's doomed to fail. There is a squeeze play in baseball, but there is also one in politics, and Democrats are putting the squeeze on two of their own, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. It's common for Congress to engineer a vote to make members of the opposing party look bad, but it's rare to do that to members of your own party. Republicans say Democrats aren't focusing on problems facing the country.
Fox's Chad Pergram. The House committee investigating the assault on the Capitol issues subpoenas to Rudy Giuliani and other members of former President Trump's legal team. The committee's seeking records and testimony from them in connection with false claims of election fraud. And New York's Attorney General is taking legal action to compel former President Trump and two of his children, Donald Jr. and Ivanka, to testify in a civil case. The AG's office accuses the Trump family business of fraudulent or misleading practices. AT&T and Verizon agreed to delay the rollout of 5G service near major airports. Airlines have been warning for more than a year that 5G technology will interfere with aircraft instruments. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
It is true that if there are hundreds or thousands of flights that are grounded, that means not just disruptions to passenger travel, that also means cargo operations. That means that goods aren't moving around as quickly and effectively as they need to.
America's listening to Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Americans can now order free COVID tests from the federal website covidtest.gov. The launch of the website comes amid criticism from both parties that the Biden administration should have known that there was a COVID test shortage. Critics say
steps to increase testing access should have happened before the current wave hit, not several weeks into the surge. Critics also slammed the shipping timeline of the kits, 7 to 12 days, with the first orders going out in late January. Moreover, they charge the administration failed to plan for collecting data on the home positivity rates, forcing some states and towns to fend for themselves to track test results.
Fox's Kevin Cork. The White House will also reportedly announce Wednesday that it's going to hand out hundreds of millions of free N95 masks. Politico reports the mask will come from the national stockpile. The weekend hostage taking at a synagogue in Houston renews debate about security for houses of worship. Fox's Gary Baumgarten spoke to a rabbi who carries a gun to Sabbath services.
Ohio Rabbi Kerry Cosberg keeps a pistol in his waistband as he preaches and says the Bible tells him he should.
It's time for Jews to, at least in America, to get over their visceral fear of firearms and remember their ancestors like Mattathias and King David and Joshua. And frankly, remember what the Talmud says, when someone comes to kill you, you have to prepare to kill them first.
Cosberg says not only does he carry, but he's trained a lot and believes only those who are well trained should be armed to protect their houses of worship. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
And comedic actor Louis Anderson is hospitalized for cancer treatment. His publicist says the star of Baskets is resting comfortably in a Las Vegas hospital. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Muning.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
So another great halftime show here on Tall Tales, the marching band, the drill team. We got to work on getting the synchronized card section back up in the grandstand when we put this whole Wuhan virus thing behind us, but it's still a good show as it is. So I left off with Michael San Nicolas versus the governor, talking about Eagles Field and giving the land back to the original landowners. And Michael San Nicolas has come on pretty strong here, and we wind up with this. The delegate has copied both the island senators and the attorney general to ensure due diligence. The letter he sent to the governor, he sent to island senators and to the attorney general to ensure due diligence. I don't know what he's expecting from along the lines of due diligence. You know, there's a lot of talk about Michael San Nicolas challenging the governor for the Democrat nomination come this fall. And I'd been pretty much a Michael San Nicolas supporter up until this point, but this kind of demagoguery kind of leaves me a little bit cold. San Nicolas goes on to say San Nicolas wrote in part, it would likely be of serious concern to the federal government if it was a party to a willful transaction intended to circumvent local statutes mandating just compensation to original landowners for lands deemed in excess. Now, first of all, that's not what the statute says. And second, what the statute says is it's got to be excess land. If the military really has the trump card here, if the military doesn't say it's excess land, then that whole land, Guam land, that whole mechanism does not kick in. So if the military doesn't say it's excess property, then there is no obligation on anyone's part to give land to the pre-condemnation owners. So I have some advice for Michael San Nicolas. It's called Bob's 3 Rules of Statutory Construction. Statutory construction or statutory interpretation. Mechanism does not come into play. Even if the land were given to the government of Guam in fee simple, if it's not declared excess, it doesn't apply. For instance, if the Navy decided it would sell some land to the government of Guam, the Ancestral Lands Commission mechanism wouldn't come into play. And as Crystal Paco says, the land was not declared excess, just the Navy decided that they would work with the government to provide a lease upon which that hospital can be built. Now, you're going to say, well, what about the 18 families? Well, it means the 18 families aren't going to get the kind of windfall that an awful lot of other people got. And once again, you go back through history, when the property was condemned, the United States government had to pay just compensation for the property. That's the law. That's what even the Constitution tells you that. So the government paid for it then. In 1978, Representative or Delegate Wonpat got a statute through Congress appropriating enough money to pay for the land again. So the land was paid for twice. Not only was it paid for twice, but in some cases, the pre-condemnation owners got the land back. And what happened when they got the land back? Well, some land at NAS, they got the land back and sold it to the government. So the government's paid for the land 4 times, one government or another. And somehow this is all supposed to make sense. And we have the sad tale of the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant, where land was given back to the government of Guam, to the Ancestors Land Commission, and ultimately to Cortec. And now we find out that the land that the Northern Wastewater Treatment Plant sits on was given to Cortec, according to the latest ruling from Judge Iriarte. So to try to find some common sense, a sensible approach to this whole mechanism is an extremely difficult job. And if it winds up that the 18 families don't get the windfall and we get a brand new hospital on a 100-year leasehold, that's just kind of the way things work sometimes. Got a phone call coming in, Daryl. So, as I said earlier, it's kind of a slow day here as far as the local calendar is concerned. So, if you want to call up and go to that first item on my checklist, Bob, you don't know what you're talking about, feel free. We can talk it over, and we can perhaps bring some light to the subject. I notice I've got someone in the green room here who's dying to get on the phone. I thought I had somebody in the green room. Don't tell me my stack is not working either. My stack's not working, Daryl, so you just have to, you can just tell me what you got.
I've got Kellis on the line, and he's asking about whether landing fees are going to the people whose lands are under TDSN.
Yeah, well, let me pick him up here.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Kellis.
Hey, Judge. I thought that was part of the fourth or fifth settlement for the fourth or fifth payment to the original landowners, that part of the landing fees, I could be wrong, goes to the original family.
Well, if that's the case, it's the first I've heard of it, Kellis, and I'll have to confess I'm not completely up to date with what happened to the land at NAS, the Benny Crawford suit, the settlement, et cetera, et cetera. I have a suspicion, though, and that is that it's probably contrary to FAA regulations to alienate part of the landing fees. I suspect that those are probably dedicated to something else.
Well, because the reason I was thinking of it, because there's this thing on Guam that it's called notwithstanding, which is an awful powerful set of words that as long as you say notwithstanding, you can open any lockbox and use it for absolutely anything. I could be wrong, but I'd have to be a judge to know about that.
Well, remember, a decision came down from the Supreme Court here just recently that kind of circumscribed that myth a little bit. The notwithstanding language only applies to existing law that might be in conflict with the phrase that follows the notwithstanding. It doesn't wipe out all other law.
Yeah, but so for example, if let's say for example there was a lockbox for fuel taxes, and the fuel taxes lockbox says all funds for fuel taxes will be used solely for the roads on Guam.
Uh-huh.
But then if Senator Snuffy says that I need money so I can go to the Philippines for a massage or whatnot, so I put in a law that says, notwithstanding, I will take $10,000 from the fuel tax lockbox.
Yeah, but you see what you're talking about there, the notwithstanding only applies to the statute that's in conflict with the notwithstanding. Now, the popular mythology up until this time has been that if there's a statute that has 6 elements, and the notwithstanding clause is followed by a phrase that would only address one of the 6. Popular mythology was that all 6 of the provisions, even though they don't conflict, would be wiped out by the notwithstanding, and the court pretty much put that to bed.
Well, then how's Gov Guam going to get money for trips and for pay raises?
Yeah, well, trickery and legerdemain.
Okay, but like I said, I could be wrong, but I thought I heard maybe it's something that a rumor I started, which is possible, that the original landowners were getting part of the landing fees.
Yeah, if you haven't
after
heard,
being paid 4 or 5 times.
If you haven't heard a good rumor, start one. Thanks for calling.
That's what I was thinking, Judge.
Thanks
you
for
have a good day.
Thanks, Kevin Kellis. Thanks for calling. Yeah, so so this whole, this whole give the land back to the pre-condemnation owners has greatly enriched an awful lot of people, windfalls for an awful lot of people. And who paid for it all? We did. Those of us that weren't fortunate enough to have any pre-condemnation interest in any pre-condemnation land. So it was the general fund that paid for it. It was taxpayers in general that paid for it. Okay, I'm going to put Michael San Nicolas versus the governor aside and move on to GWA versus Stella. And Stella has made the newspaper more than once. She was a subject to a Post editorial. Stella is an 85-year-old woman who lives by herself. And this is a story that ran in the Post. The $36,000 plus cumulative water bill for an elderly Jigo resident stands because there's evidence of a water leak that was repaired and the water meter was functioning perfectly. Guam Waterworks General Manager Miguel Berdallo on Tuesday told the Consolidated Commission on Utilities. So I can hear the murmurings out in the community. Is he heartless? Doesn't he feel sorry for the old lady? What kind of a man is he? What if it were his mother? Stella Beloy's family on Tuesday said the 85-year-old who lives by herself didn't have any water leak or leak repair done on her property. Beloy's family seeks GWA's reconsideration of the billing, which as of this week stands at $36,509.81. The bill stands and there's nothing we can do. There's no evidence that we have to make an adjustment or credit to the bill, so it stands, Berdallo said Tuesday at CCU GWA work session. CCO Commissioner Simon Sanchez said it's an unfortunate situation. He said, puts GWA in an awkward position, I guess, an awkward position. Little old ladies, the definition of a good person is, first of all, you must help little old ladies across the street. That's more important than not tearing tags off mattresses. more important than never double parking. You must help. So you must have great empathy for little old ladies like Stella. Sanchez asked why it took GWA several months to inspect the customer's premises. Berdalio said GWA conducted the inspection in response to the media story. The Daily Post ran stories in December about Beloy's water bills that went from $28 a month to $7,000 plus in December, and then to $10,000 plus in January, and then to $9,000 plus in February and March of 2021. Berdalio also said GWA is working to get the account holder some assistance. We reached out to nonprofit organizations and the governor's office for any assistance that might be available. Governor Lujan Guerrero said it will have more information about the situation by Wednesday. Sanchez said the disputed billing brings to light the need for a better system at GWA in cases where there are surges in customers' water bills. We know it creates a situation none of us want, but we have to deal with it because it happens, and it's just trying to think through better ways for us to attack it sooner to try to catch it before it becomes a $36,000 bill. The waterworks now is going to spend money to protect customers from themselves. You know, when you get a water bill that's $7,000 and your water bill has been $28 a month, what do? You just forget about it? Just hope that it goes away?
You go look for a wet spot in your yard.
You do something. So there has to be some individual responsibility here. And let me go on here. Berdalio said that when there appears to be a 24-hour continued water usage, that leak alert shows up on a customer's bills. So customers always have to check their billing. Makes sense. He acknowledged that the current process doesn't include a phone call to the customer, for example, to make sure the customer is aware of big changes in usage and bill amount, and the GWA will work to improve the process. Now, I think this is the only time I've ever heard of something like this happening.
I think it's the first time I've ever heard of something like this happening.
Yeah.
That the utility would be looking for surges in use by customers.
The marketing plan for most businesses is you sell as much of your product as you can. You don't have alerts that alert you when you're selling a lot of your product.
Right.
That's a general principle. Sanchez acknowledged, you got a phone call coming in, Daryl. Sanchez acknowledged that the current process doesn't include a phone call, etc. Berdalio also brought up GWA's proposed customer assistance program that the Public Utilities Commission has yet to approve. He said the program will be able to help customers such as Beloy because it includes leak detection services and leak repair services to qualified recipients. At the working session, Berdalio told the CCU that the GWA crew that went to Beloy's property took video and photos which confirmed signs that there was in fact a break on the private site piping of significant pressure and the pressure at the meter. I had them verified as around 50 pounds per square inch. That indicates a long period of leak. Pushed all of that soil to the surface. The GWA general manager also said the customer had only one working faucet. There were two other faucets that were observed on the property that were not working, and they appeared to have been disconnected from being connected prior. That might have been the leaking lines that were repaired. Beloy's son, Eutikio Beloy Jr., currently residing in Hawaii, said there were no repairs done. Now, how would he know?
He's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, I was wondering, I don't know exactly where this house is, but I do know that a new reservoir was put in along the Dedido-Jigo border. It's more in the Dedido side, but a new line was was laid along in Jigo, along the route where I ride my bike, and they tore up a mile or more than a mile of road. And it might be that they increased the water pressure in her area to the point where it blew open a line. But she should have known that. There should have been a lot of water there. The $35,000 worth of water is going to cause a big wet spot.
True enough. The GWA general manager also said that although the customer had only one working faucet, there were two other faucets that were observed on the property that were not working, and they appeared to have been disconnected from being connected prior, and that might have been the leaking lines that were repaired. If this was in fact fixed after the last $9,000 plus bill, why did it spike again with just one faucet in the property with one old lady? The Sun said. After March 2021, the monthly bills were still going up and down, including reaching $377. An old lady who does not know anything about plumbing and was not aware of any leaks on her property is being charged this outrageous amount of money, the Sun said. At the work session, CCU Chair Joey Duenas said when there are improvements in the water system and the water pressure is increased, a customer can expect a huge bill if there is even a little leak in the line. This happened to the CCU chairman himself, he said, when his bill went up to about $800. When he saw the bill, he immediately reached out. Duenas reminded customers that it's incumbent upon them, once they see a big change in their water bills, to have their lines checked for leaks. There are plumbing companies out there that will do leak detection. They are not cheap, and neither is racking up some bills, the chairman said. A couple of phone calls coming in, Daryl. Okay, let's break for the seventh inning stretch while Daryl sorts out these phone calls here.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago for the 7th inning stretch. That means I got just 2 more innings of Tall Tales to go. I had a couple phone calls, and they both lost hard, huh, Daryl?
Well, I don't know what the second call was about, but the first caller wanted to know what was the story with the home COVID testing. If you test positive, then who are you supposed to tell? Are you supposed to go to the doctor, or are you supposed to stay home and suffer? And that was what it was about. He didn't know what he was supposed to do if he knew he had it.
Mm.
And I said, well, I guess most people are home because it's like a flu. So you stay home unless you are in distress, and then you
And you call
medical
a
help.
doctor. Yeah. Makes sense to me. Yeah.
So that's what that was about. And the second call, I don't know. They both dropped off at the same time, and then one came back.
Okay, so here we go. The phone lines are open, and this would be a really good. If you ever had an overpowering desire to call Tall Tales, you'll never have a better chance than right now. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the Waterworks Authority versus Stella. So the Waterworks has done its own investigation, found that there was a leak, found that the leak had been repaired, found that the meter was working perfectly. So had the investigation shown that the meter was faulty and that the lady really hadn't used $36,000 worth of water, the matter would have turned out a little differently. But apparently, from everything we know right now, over $36,000 worth of water went through her meter. Now, this is a sad thing, that obviously she doesn't have $36,000 to plunk down for a water bill. I don't think any one of our international radio listening audience has $36,000 to pay for water with. But let's just stop and examine what we've got here and what the important considerations are. The water that the Water Authority sells, it doesn't buy, it doesn't pay for, unless it comes from Fenna Dam down in the southern part of the island. So what you're buying then is the infrastructure that pipes the water from the well to your house, and then the sewage from your house to the sewage treatment plant. And when the water leaks, we don't lose the water, because the water, especially up north, the water leaks back into the lens. So we haven't actually lost any water in the process. What we have lost is the value of the piping and pumping of that water from its source to the residence where it went through the meter. This is kind of a pedantic explanation of what you're paying for when you buy water, but that's it. You're paying for water that goes through that meter, and the money that you pay pays for the pipe, for the installation of all of the pipes, the maintenance of the pipes, the pumps, the whole rigmarole. And if people didn't pay for their water, very quickly there wouldn't be any water to pay for. So it's important that people pay their water bills, otherwise we wouldn't have water. Now, with respect to Stella here, she's got a $36,509.81 water bill. And probably everybody out there is saying, you know, if it were me, I'd just say, I'm sorry, Stella, but you don't have to pay that. You can't afford it. You're old. You don't have to pay it. But if we let Stella off the hook and say, Stella, we feel bad for you, so you don't have to pay, what are the consequences? Well, consequence number one, the so-called slippery slope. If there's one Stella nowadays, there'll probably be 10 Stellas next week trying to figure out some way to Stella their water bill so they wouldn't have to pay. Figuring out, well, you know, I wanted to farm out here, but I couldn't afford the water, but now I'm going to. And I'll just say, well, you know, just like Stella, I shouldn't have to pay. And then the second consideration is that someone has to pay the $36,509.81. If the waterworks doesn't collect it from someone, then we all pay for it, because that's an expense that will go against the income of the waterworks. So we all have to pay for it. Now, Miguel Bordallo said that he'd contacted some charitable organizations and the governor's office, etc. One of the things that, a third consideration here is that I don't want either of the two power authorities to be recast as social welfare organizations so that they take into consideration the customer's ability to pay when they start charging. Once you start down that road, there's no end to it, and we'll soon wind up where we were back in the 90s with Hanum Taki and then load shedding blues. So, and I suspect that anyone approached the heads of charitable organizations say, well, why should we give money? That's just going to go to the power authority. Well, that's exactly right. So there's a lot of emotional baggage here, none of which leads to a sound decision-making process. So before I leave this, I'm going to say that we have to say that Stella owes that money. Stella's got a son who perhaps has some ability to raise money. There are charitable organizations on the island who might want to chip in, etc. Okay, my stack is broken, so I don't know the name of the caller.
I've got John on line 1. He wants to talk about his story, his experience with GWA.
Okay. Tell us about GWA, John.
Yep. Same thing happened to me. I haven't used my water. My water bill was steady for a year. Then they came up with this new smart metering. They said, nope, it's broken. We changed it out. Now you owe us this much. So I fought them for 3 years, and they resolved it. I didn't owe them anything. Matter of fact, when they said they changed the meter, there is no evidence of the meter being changed. So you can't trust GWA. I mean, look what's happening now with that issue with Quartet.
Okay.
So just want the people to know out there, the people out there to know that you can't trust GWA.
So your overcharge was because of a faulty meter, is that it?
Nope. They just, who knows? He never came back and said that something was, he never told me what the issue was or how they resolved it. They just said, I just saw the payment and it was gone. Disappeared. That was so funny. Because the lady said, don't you want to just pay this few dollars? I said, what for? I looked at it and said, my God, they did pay it. I said, no, I'll wait till the next thing. But in another case, just here in our village, major water leak. It's a river at Blas de la Cruz. They finally fixed it, but it took them several months. It was basically a river. So I'm thinking, you got to put meters in GWA side, and then they need some accountants or whatever need to figure out where if GWA is messing up due to incompetence, someone needs to be held accountable. Simple as that.
Okay, John. Well, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Bye.
So I've got a caller on line 2, and he's got a perspective on Stella and possible Stellas out there.
What's his name?
Don't have his name.
Okay. Caller, come in and sign in, please. What's your name?
Oh, this is Harold.
Harold. Good afternoon, Harold. Tell us about Stella.
Well, there's a good possibility. Now, this is my marine mind thinking. If there's other faucets that have been disconnected there, it's possible Stella or her son, whoever's supposed to be getting the bill, has been either giving away or selling the water by hooking hoses up to it and letting people fill up. bucket, or not buckets, but these big containers, and taking it home. Drive a pickup truck, stick a hose in it, and let it sit there for how many hours or all night. You know, they might get a couple 100 gallons out of it. Over the years, it's going to add up.
Well, that's a possibility. And when I was talking about slippery slopes, this is the kind of slippery slope that we would want to avoid if we just say, well, Stella, we feel bad for you, therefore you don't have to pay. Right?
Well, I feel bad for Stella because she got caught, maybe, or because she didn't know it was happening. But I don't want to have to pay her bill.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Harold.
If they sent the bill out every month, like they said they did, I think I read somewhere when this first started that it went to her son, who was off island, and he would pay it before all this stuff started. So she maybe never knew about it, you know. It could have been him. It could have been her, and he never knew about it.
Could be.
But, in my house, I've lived in my house up here in Laddie Heights area since 1975, and I got a $380 bill one month, and then the next month it was down to normal. The next month it was another $300, and finally found out after a long search there was a water pipe leaking behind the bathtub faucet, and you couldn't see it. We never could. We found the leak by accident.
Wow.
But I complained to, I think it was PUAG at the time. It might have been already GWA, but they also came out and they looked, and they tried to tell me that, oh, we looked in the hole where the meter is was full of water. I've lived this place for 45 years. That hole has never had any water in it, even in the typhoons. It never fills up with water and overflows. So I don't know what they were doing to check it, but they said, the meters go, they put 3 different meters in before they finally told me the meter's good. And it turned out it was a leak I had, but nobody could find it.
Yeah.
But I think the more I hear about it, and everybody's, oh, poor old Stella, you know, well, yeah, poor old Stella, but somebody is around trying to charge her for this stuff, thinking that the regular users, the water users, are going to pay for it, or GovGuam's going to have to pay for it, or GWA is going to eat it. I don't want to pay for her bill, water bill. Nobody pays for mine.
Okay, Harold, I hear you loud and clear. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, and next time I see you walking in around your house there, I'm going to stop and say hello.
I appreciate that. It's always nice to meet a tailgater, Harold. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you don't think so. You won't want to meet me.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
So long. So, who have we got on line 1?
We've got Drive-Through Jack.
Drive-Through Jack. Drive-Through, I'm going to hang on. I'm going to put you on right after we go to Churchill Downs.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Need to finish the job or start one the right way? Get the right stuff at East West Rental Center. You can switch to easy mode using industrial strength equipment. With years of experience helping builders, East West Rental gives you exactly what you need. Tools for landscaping, concrete, lifts, trucks, tables, tents, chairs, water blasters, excavators, forklifts, air compressors, and more. Call East West Rental Center at 646-1463 or visit them in Upper Tumon. Open Monday to Saturday from 7 to 5, Sundays 8 to 5.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, and I know that one of our callers is about to pull into a drive-through. Can we play the theme song, the theme music for drive-through, Jack? Probably not. Choco. Goes like this. Da, 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 da,
Oh,
da.
mess call.
Yeah.
Okay, mess call. You know, there it is. I see it. There. There.
How you doing, Bob?
Drive-through, Jack, we wouldn't want to bring you in without the appropriate overture. I wouldn't want to cause your anger.
No anger here. No anger issues here. I'm having supper here at the sushi place down here across the sandcastle. So yeah. I don't know how you do it, Bob. How you handle this show, and then also do your TV show 1883 with Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, which is on Paramount Studios Network. I just don't know how you do it, but I love that show, 1893. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to see it, maybe binge watch it, but it's a great show. It's about the West.
Okay.
And pioneering. Go ahead.
I never saw a cowboy movie I didn't like, but go ahead, Drive-through, Jack.
Yeah, it's a TV show. So anyways, I moved up to Dedido, I would say around 2006. And on Marine Corps Drive, where GTA is and the GWA is, there's above ground connection. It's a big pipe. I think it's a 9-inch pipe. And not for days, not for months, but for years, that above ground pipe would be leaking. And on your way home, you would see it, plain as sight. Leaking, leaking, leaking. Now, I don't know who's responsible for that water bill, but I know it's more than what that old lady had to pay. And so that's the dilemma there. It took them years to fix that pipe because they were running into a supply issue or something, or I don't know what they were looking for, but if you ever got stuck in traffic going home, or if you walked along that area, it's noticeable. And so there's problems, and I agree with you that this is a community problem that we need to help this old lady, but at the same time, it feels like the previous caller mentioned that maybe this lady's being scammed, maybe her water's been taken. It's very hard to hide $32,000 water damage on your property. And I did read the article finally, and it did mention that they did videos and they did an investigation. And if they ruled out theft, then yeah, I guess that burden falls on the user there, or the end user. But yeah, we need to have charity in our hearts and help this lady as much as we can. If it's deemed that there was no theft involved with the water, like the guy said. But I also would like to remind people that I was part of that big problem that GWA had with the replacing of the faulty water meters. And if people remember, they back-billed us, the ratepayers, 4 months because of the faulty water bills. It says, you were paying this much money, but you were really supposed to pay this much based on the estimate of usage. And, I didn't make an argument about it because I thought I liked the way it was going for you to get the real-time consumption of the water. Real-time consumption of your power, your ability to set alerts sent to you if you're reached the threshold of your power usage, and your ability to look at the real-time consumption of your water. But what I am disappointed in is that it's been 20 years, and Mr. Beneventi was hired as the czar of the water and the power. And one of the main things they were supposed to do was the combined billing, the consolidated billing of the water and the power, which still hasn't been done. And if you have to hook up water and power on the same day, this is how it goes. You stand in line, you get hooked up, you go see the person for the water, you sign in, and then you go see the person for the water. Then you got to go back after you're done with that and sign in again in the same station, go up to the same desk, but see a different person there to talk about your power.
Do you have to wear a mask?
So, wear a mask. So, there's still a lot of flaws. It still needs to be worked out, but it's been years. I'm still looking for us, the advantage for the ratepayers, to manage their power in a consumption peak usage hours, in which, as a consumer, peak usage, they're charged more. And if I want to do my laundry at night when it's not and pay less, I do my laundry at night. We still haven't moved to that. So there's a lot of things that still need to be done. We're 20 years in. We're 2 decades in. And it seems like the ball is moving forward, but, we're just running into problems and obstacles. And it's just growing pains, I understand.
Let me take you back to the future, Drive-Through Jack. Back in the day, we had the Public Utility Agency of Guam. The Public Utility Agency of Guam sent out like a yellow postcard. And on that postcard, you had your water bill, your power bill, and your telephone bill.
Hello? Okay.
And you could take that yellow card to any treasurer of Guam and pay for it with one check, or probably in those days, one $20 bill would pay the whole thing. But as we got more modern, we've gotten more sophisticated. Now we have water bills and power bills and telephone bills, etc.
Yeah. Hello, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my phone is dying. It's giving out on you. But I like to say that the word charity means love, and she is an elderly woman. And one thing we need to do is look out for these people, especially if they're first rule out scam, rule out theft, and then we need to just open our hearts and help her out as much as we can. And I agree with Simon that this wasn't a GWA fault, but at the same time, we have to look and compare it and how it handles its own internal problems. And we got to stop passing the buck to the ratepayers, and we need to, correct these things as they come forward. But anyways, I think Simon has this one correct, and he's not on my Christmas list. But when he gets it right, I'm not ashamed to say that he got it right, and we just need to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, Drive-Through Jack, enjoy your dinner.
All right, Bob.
So long.
You too. Bye-bye.
Well, I hear the we got to do better angle, and I don't know that I'm convinced. And I'm looking at a post from Jose Tedpago Jr. After $300, the meter should have been removed, period. Any amount above the GWA would absorb due to their terrible operations management. Several divisions should have flagged this. Now, I suspect in the modern era, with all kinds of devices and computer programs, etc., it would be possible to do that. But the question keeps coming back to that same nasty question: who's going to pay for it?
Well, there was a caller when Jack was on who made the point. He didn't want to go on the air, but he said somebody should really look into the circumstances under which an 85-year-old woman is living alone in a place with one spigot and no sewage.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely. Yeah, somebody like maybe your son.
Yes.
That would be a good place to start, wouldn't it? I think we can get one more call in before the end of the show, Daryl.
Johnny, Utah.
Hey, Johnny, Utah. How you doing?
Oh, I'm busy. I'm at work, but I just was able to take my break, but had some bad things happen here at work, so I couldn't listen or call into the show or talk to you guys. But I wanted to call in for a minute just to talk to you about one real quick thing. Have you heard of the Aztec deities being taught in California public schools?
Yeah, I did see an article about that. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So they were actually having all 1.8 million students as part of their CRT, the critical race theory. The Democrats there, which I'm sorry, but I'm just done with Democrats. They actually had the high school and junior high students praying to Aztec deities, and they were using CRT, critical race theory, as an excuse to do this. And they've been doing it for a couple of years now. And two of the chants were actually prayers to sacrificing human beings.
Yeah, I suspect that they would tell you they have to do this to combat systemic racism, right?
That's the excuse that they're using here. But so parents, a group of parents, filed lawsuit against them, and saying, hey, you can't force our children to pray. Of course they're saying, oh no, it's not a prayer, it's a chant. But they were actually praying to pagan gods and forcing California's public schools to pray to these pagan gods, and it was legal up until yesterday when the court ruling ruled on it, and so they had to stop.
Oh, that's good. So what we wind up the show with is Ravel's Bolero, Daryl.
Yeah, I know. I hit the wrong one.
Yeah, so Daryl is looking for the music that ends the show, Johnny Utah, so I'm really glad you got the call. Thanks for calling.
I'll talk to you again. All right. God bless you guys. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
On 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. HD3.
A debate and vote today in the Senate. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The Democrats' voting rights legislation appears headed for defeat as two moderate holdout Democrats refuse to support a filibuster rule change. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.